I think we've all come across those situations where it's a really hot day and we see that someone left their dog in their car. Now, these days, when that happens, a lot of the times people will put a little note up saying the AC's on or saying they're going to be right back in 2 minutes, whatever the case may be. But people still get a little bit concerned because leaving your dog there could have horrible, horrible consequences. Now, today we are not talking about dogs. We're talking about a dad who low-key treated his kids worse than most people treat their dogs by leaving one of his kids in a car in Arizona when it was 109 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's get into all of that. This case, by the way, guaranteed will piss you off because there's a detail I found out that actually gave me goosebumps from the rage I was feeling. I don't know if you have a punching bag or something like that, but this could be a good time to decide that you're going to use that today. Arizona dad arrested for murder after allegedly leaving daughter, 2, in hot car for 3 hours during a 109-degree heat wave. An Arizona man was arrested and charged with murder for allegedly leaving his 2-year-old daughter inside a sweltering car for 3 hours during a 109-degree heat wave this week, cops announced on Friday. Christopher Schultz, 37, was identified as a suspect in the Tuesday death of his toddler, whom he left in a car in the driveway outside his home in Marana, Arizona, approximately 22 miles northwest of Tucson. He was arrested early Friday and charged with second-degree murder and child abuse, according to the Marana Police Department. Like I said before, the more you're going to find out about this, the more this becomes enraging. Because just this, in my opinion, is already enraging and disgusting because it's very clear that you either don't care or you're an idiot, perhaps both. The concept of in your driveway, you are like, 10 steps away from your front door and you have to leave your kid in the driveway. And some people might ask, hey, why is that? Why would he leave the kid in the driveway if he's home and could release his child into the home? Well, we'll get into that too, and plot twist, it'll also piss you off. So then it goes on to say, detectives obtained a search warrant for surveillance footage from a neighbor, which showed the girl had been inside the car for 3 hours, cops said. The police were called to the home just after 4 p.m. Tuesday after the child's mother arrived home to find her daughter unresponsive inside a car that was turned off with no air conditioning running. The mom performed CPR on the tot until first responders arrived and unsuccessfully performed life-saving measures before taking her to the hospital, where she was pronounced dead. Schultz allegedly told cops he arrived home with his daughter asleep in the car in her car seat. Not wanting to wake her up, Schultz said he left her in the running car with the AC on while he went inside, according to police. On Wednesday, Marana Police Captain Tim Brunenkamp said they sought to determine when the car and AC turned off. So here's a picture of the murder. Goes on to say Schultz was being held at Pima County Adult Detention Center. This incident is a stark reminder of the dangers of leaving children unattended in vehicles, the Marana PD said in a statement. The temperature inside a vehicle can rise rapidly, even on relatively mild days, leading to potentially fatal outcomes within minutes. The Marana Police Department and our entire community feel this heartbreaking loss, and our thoughts and prayers are with everyone affected by this tragic incident, the statement concluded. On Tuesday, when temps hit a record-hitting high of 111 degrees, it would take roughly 20 minutes for a car to heat up to 140 degrees and just 40 minutes to reach 150 degrees. So let's remember, this car was at 109 and she was in there for 3 hours. So within 3 hours, obviously it was way higher than 109 and probably wouldn't have been far off from somewhere around the 150s. I'm not good at math and I don't want to assume, but nonetheless, the 150s. Now, you may be wondering where the next enraging part is because I keep telling you that that's coming. So there are multiple moving factors here because the other thing is we have a mention of the mother coming home, finding her daughter unresponsive. So you might be wondering, the mother/wife must be so angry at her husband for pulling something like this. And, well, aside from that, you also might be wondering, what was his logic in leaving the kid in the car in his driveway? Even if there was the AC, it's like, if you're home, why leave the kid in the car? That's what doesn't make sense, right? That's what was shocking to me because I assumed he went to a store or in some venue and that's why the kid was in the car, because otherwise just open the door to the house? ? So let's talk about the wife, because here we go. Wife of Arizona dad charged with murder for leaving toddler in hot car for hours calls tragic death a big mistake. I'm not even going to pretend I know where she's coming from with this one, so let's just move on. So it says, an Arizona man charged with murder after he allegedly killed his 2-year-old by leaving her in a hot car during a heat wave for hours is a quote-unquote amazing father and a pillar of the community, his wife told a judge. Anesthesiologist Erica Schultz, 35, called her toddler's daughter's death a big mistake during a Friday court hearing for Christopher Schultz, who pleaded not guilty in the death of their youngest child, Parker. Authorities said Schultz, 37, of Marina, Arizona, left Parker in a car in the family's driveway for hours Tuesday in 111-degree temperatures. It goes on to say, I'm just asking if you can allow him to come home to us so then we can all start the grieving process so he can bury our daughter with us this upcoming week and that we can go through this whole process together as a family, Erica Schultz begged the judge. Hold on to everything she just said about being together as a family because that will be important later. And I mean, I understand. No, actually, I don't. I don't understand wanting him there to bury the kid that he killed. Sorry, that would not be my priority whatsoever. And I don't even know how you kind of metabolize that so quickly. That's yes, my husband made a big mistake that caused our child to die, and I really want him there when we bury said child that he killed. This was a big mistake, and this doesn't represent him, she added. I just want the girls to see their father, that I don't have to tell them tonight that they're going to have to endure another loss. Seems like that's kind of a key point here. They shouldn't endure another loss, but you realize that the first loss was caused by him. So him coming back could mean another loss for you in the sense of, what's to say he doesn't have another great idea of a big mistake with another child of yours, and that's going to be the next child who ends up hurt or worse. I would never, ever, ever trust this man around children again, in no circumstance. I'm sorry, it's not a big mistake to leave a child in a car in sweltering hot weather with no AC on, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure he admits later there was no AC. Anyway, so what does he bring to the table? Because as of now, it looks like he just brought death. I understand wanting to grieve as a family and all of that as a concept. In this particular case, the reality does not align with me when grieving as a family includes the killer who's in the family. He's not a risk to the community, she insisted. He was arrested early Friday and charged with second-degree murder and child abuse, according to the Marana Police Department. We're going to talk also about child abuse. So him being a pillar of the community and a good guy, we'll talk about that also. Schultz appeared in court later that same day. A not guilty plea was entered by the judge, and the father of 3 was then released to pretrial services, according to a report. The judge set a $25,000 secured bond, refusing the state's request for a heftier $1 million bond. I would have preferred the $1 million bond. An audio provided by KVOA TV. Mrs. Schultz can be heard calmly requesting the judge to let her husband come home while awaiting his preliminary hearing on August 1st so the family can mourn the dead child together. The police were called to the home just after 4 p.m. Tuesday after the child's mother came home to find her daughter unresponsive in a car that was turned off with no air conditioning running. I'm going to skip over some parts that we already know. So here's the picture of Parker, by the way. Schultz originally told cops he drove home with his daughter at 2 p.m., but video footage from a neighbor indicated that he arrived home at 12:53 p.m., KLD-TV reported. Then it talks about the temperatures hitting the high. Then it says, Marana Police Department Tim Brunenkamp told reporters that Parker's death was still being investigated. We don't know the circumstances. We're trying to find out. When those temperatures arise, especially this week, when it's 110, it's just tragic. Outside of a DUI charge from 15 years ago, Schultz does not have a criminal history. One of the conditions of Schultz's release is that he have no unsupervised contact with children. His wife told the court she will be taking an extended leave of absence from work, KVOA reported. It was not immediately clear what Christopher Schultz does for a living. Hold on also to the concept of him having no criminal history, because while that is true, there is another history that is deeply alarming to me, and you'll understand because it relates very directly to what happened here in the humblest of opinions of mine. Okay, so update. Marana father accused in daughter's hot car death had several run-ins with DCS. So DCS, let's remember, in Arizona is the Department of Child Safety. So it says, Christopher Schultz investigated 9 times before the fatal incident in July 20. So this is also why I'm saying that all of this being categorized as a big mistake by the wife is absolutely insane to me. And I've seen posts on social media, so this is unconfirmed, but they were saying that the wife was standing by him, which it kind of seems by saying big mistake. Now, obviously, we don't know what happens behind closed doors. Perhaps this is just a way to get him out and then she's completely on a different page. But 9 run-ins with the Department of Child Safety. So it says, according to a report released August 20th, DCS confirmed a neglect allegation made against Schultz for Parker's death, but he was not currently under investigation at the time of the incident. DCS also said there had been no previous allegations involving Parker, but Schultz was previously investigated 9 times for allegations of physical and emotional abuse, as well as neglect for other children in his home. Those cases ran from June 2014 to December 2020. So we have 6 years of cases involving emotional abuse, physical abuse, and neglect. And then his child dies in the car in the sweltering heat. This is not a big mistake. This is a complete pattern that escalated, if you ask me. So we're going to go over Schultz's DCS history. I'm just going to show you what type of length we're dealing with, okay? So it's going to take a second, but I think it's important that we read all of this together because this will contextualize the death a lot further than the pillar of the community and the big mistake. On June 2014, a report was received alleging physical abuse to a child by their father, Mr. Schultz. The report alleged that Mr. Schultz slapped the child and squeezed her arm, causing bruising. There were no bruises observed on the child by DCS specialists. The DCS investigation did not find evidence to support the allegation, and the child was assessed as safe in Mr. Schultz's home. The allegations were unsubstantiated. The family was provided with information on services available in the community, and the case was closed. On January 23, 2017, a report was received alleging physical abuse to a child by their father, Mr. Schultz. The report alleged that the father hit the child and left bruises. The father admitted to spanking the child, but there were no bruises left or observed by the DCS specialist. The DCS investigation did not result in evidence to support the allegations, and the child was assessed as safe in Mr. Schultz's home. The allegations were unsubstantiated. And then the family was provided information services. I'm going to skip those if they keep coming up. On September 26th, a report was received alleging neglect, physical abuse, and emotional abuse to a child by their father, Mr. Schultz, and neglect to the child by their stepmother. The report alleged that Mr. Schultz slapped the child, causing them to lose their breath, and that child is left to manage their diabetes without parental oversight. The DCS investigation did not result in evidence to support the allegations, and the child was assessed as safe in Mr. Schultz's home. On February 11, 2019, a report was received alleging neglect to a child by their father, Mr. Schultz. The report alleged that the father yells at the child excessively and tells the child things to break them mentally, such as calling them foul names and referring to them as a mistake. The DCS did not result in evidence to support allegations, and the child was assessed as safe in Mr. Schultz's home. On December 12, 2019, a report was received alleging emotional abuse to a child by their father, Mr. Schultz. The report alleged that the father has not allowed the child to engage in therapy and calls them derogatory names. During the investigation, Mr. Schultz disclosed not being able to afford the therapy services, and the child expressed a desire to reside with their mother. The DCS investigation did not result in evidence to support the allegations, and the child was assessed as safe in Mr. Schultz's home. On April 21, 2020, a report was received alleging neglect to a child by their father, Mr. Schultz, and their stepmother. The report alleged that the child was kicked out of the father's home and sent with family. The DCS investigation did not result in evidence to support the allegations, and the child was assessed as safe in Mr. Schultz's home. On December 15, 2020, a report was received alleging emotional abuse to a child by their father, Mr. Schultz, and their stepmother. The report alleged that the child was experiencing suicidal ideation due to their father and stepmother treating them differently than the other children in the home and calling the child names. The allegations were unsubstantiated. This investigation was still in progress when the next report was received. On November 30th, 2020, a report was received alleging neglect and emotional abuse to a child by their father, Mr. Schultz, and their stepmother. The report alleged that the family and stepmother were verbally abusive towards the child and called them derogatory names. The allegations were unsubstantiated. This investigation was still in progress when the next report was received. On December 1st, 2020, a report was received alleging neglect to a child by their father, Mr. Schultz. The report alleged that the father never filled prescription medications for the child and was refusing to set up a behavioral health services for the child. The DCS investigation did not result in evidence to support the allegations as the medications were filled, their distribution was being overseen by the parents, and the child was enrolled in services. The allegations were unsubstantiated. The child transitioned to their mother's care and the family was referred for in-home services, and the case was closed in 2020. 2021. I think we've heard the phrase that the allegations were not substantiated ad nauseum now, so enough of that. But the fact that there were so many DCS encounters to me says that the allegations to some degree were founded. Unless someone has such a big problem with you at DCS, or someone's trying to frame you or something along those lines, aka something highly improbable, it's hard for me to believe that out of all these times, it was always unsubstantiated. Especially the fact that calling them names, granted, probably is not the worst thing that happened, calling them names, but that was such a recurring thing to the point where the kid needed some kind of therapy. To me, that's already telling enough. Now, obviously, calling names doesn't mean you also hit them and are physically abusive, but that's emotionally abusive. And so I'm wondering how that wasn't really taken into account. Because if there's one red flag popping up, it doesn't mean automatically there will be other ones. But in this case, I do think there were other ones. Very curious how all of this was treated. Then again, I do know that places like DCS, and this is no shade to DCS, it's probably by the higher ups that fuck shit up, they fail a lot. Children are failed constantly by most government services, really. So I'm not going to go into all of that, but I do think this is an example. Yeah, so this is a key part. Authorities have said Schultz lied about how long his daughter was in the vehicle and claimed he got distracted while playing video games. This is another thing that's kind of a point of contention on social media, and I don't know if social media is just bullshitting like they usually do, but a lot of articles mentioned video games. There were some that weren't super reputable articles, mind you, that said that actually he was watching porn and that's why he didn't want to let his daughter into the house, because he wanted to be alone in the house to watch porn. So make of that what you will. I don't think one is way worse than the other, because the main problem is you leaving your kid, whatever the fuck you're doing, yeah. It's stupid, potentially a little depraved. That's not really the center of focus though. Regardless, playing video games or being distracted doing whatever on your phone, on your PlayStation, is crazy behavior to forget your entire child's existence in the sweltering heat in the car. According to the interim complaint, Schultz, other two children, ages 9 and 5, said their father had left all three children alone in the vehicle regularly and stated that he got distracted by playing his game and putting his food away when their sister was in the car. So it goes on to say that Schultz's trial is scheduled to start October 27th, and 13 News will be in the courtroom to cover it. In March 2025, Schultz rejected a plea deal that would have had him agree to a second-degree murder charge. He risks a potential life sentence if convicted on the first-degree murder charge instead of 10 to 25 years in prison for accepting a second-degree murder deal. So I think all of this sounds bad enough as it is, and I do think that this case is not very nuanced. For most cases, I try to find some type of gray, some type of reasoning as to why a killer, criminal, whatever the case may be, did the damn thing. In this particular case, I truly do struggle to understand how this all panned out. If you are a human with a working brain, which may be a lot to ask of this man, leaving your kid in the car from the get-go is stupid. Now, there are some claims that he left her in the car because she was asleep and he didn't want to wake her up, and it's what kind of bullshit answer is that? If your kid falls asleep in the sun, in the desert, are you going to leave them there to just chill? I don't really understand any of the logic supposedly used here. It also doesn't make sense to me that you'd forget that your 2-year-old is in the car, because unless there's someone else at home who should have noticed that there were only 2 of 3 children there, a 2-year-old needs a relatively significant amount of attention. They're not like a 20-year-old who can just go to their room and do whatever. So the fact that for hours you forgot that there was a 2-year-old, an age that needs a big level of attention, also tells me, what are you like when they're at home? Do you not consider them at all? Because that is absolutely crazy business. When I don't see my dog for too long at home, I'm like, where is she? So here is personally where I lost my shit, okay? Dad charged in 2-year-old daughter's hot car death gets Hawaii trip approved with wife, kids. Nothing says I'm so sad for murdering my child as, you know what, I'm gonna hang loose in Hawaii. Christopher Schultz was permitted to visit Maui with his wife and 2 daughters on May 2nd to 9th. While on the trip, Schultz was ordered to contact pretrial services upon leaving Arizona. While outside of the state and upon his return, He was also ordered to have no unsupervised contact with children. Schultz is charged with felony first-degree murder and child abuse for the death of his 2-year-old daughter in a hot car in July 2024. So this is another important thing that we kind of touched on earlier. So remember that he claimed he left the vehicle running with the AC on. When he went back outside, the car was off and his daughter was unconscious. He admitted knowing about the car's automatic shut-off feature, while video and documents suggested that he was inside his home playing video games for up to 3 hours. So he knew full well that his car and the AC were just going to stop. They were going to turn off. I'm sorry, but what else do we really need to know here? At this point, it just seems like I cannot come up with any imaginary reasoning of how it is that this happened in a way where he actively did not contribute to it happening. Does that make sense? Like, this quote-unquote big mistake, he was fully aware the car was going to turn off. I think he was also fully aware he had a child. Like, I don't know how you forget about the existence of your own children. Especially, like I said, children who need a lot of attention. It's one thing to forget your 20-year-old is upstairs on their computer. It's a very different thing to forget that your 2-year-old, a kid who needs a lot of attention, is in the car boiling. So that's where we're at as of now. I'm curious to see what happens on, I think it was October 27th, yes, when the trial is scheduled to start. Because honestly, I don't know who's going to have that much empathy for this man. Just based on this case, right? If you consider all the DCS problems as well, I don't know who else is going to feel empathy. Also, they mention the stepmother being kind of part of the problem as well, according to the DCS claims. So it just seems like anything to do with him and his household in terms of the adults in the household is not suited for children. I'm confused at how it even got to this point. After 9, I believe it was, DCS incidents, how many times do you just keep believing it's some big mistake? 9 times? Like once or twice, maybe, but 9? Really? You don't see a pattern or a problem if something keeps coming up? You guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.